A lot of work's been put in the last couple of months of obviously with the roster and adding a lot of new additions, self-study on scheme and schematics and tightening up some details and getting obviously get started from the ground up with our offense, defense, special teams. So spring's a great time for the experimentation on a couple of thoughts. It's all about player development too, opportunity for really everyone on the roster to get some reps and experience and take a step in their game. Talked about that today, actually, in our team meeting, opportunity to improve and elevate. So spring ball encompasses all of that. It's a great time of year, focused on your roster and having these guys move around. They've been working really hard. Appreciate Mike McDonald and his staff in the weight room. These guys had a great offseason, January, February, getting bigger, faster, and stronger. And now we get to the next step of taking that kind of to the field. So really looking forward to it. Each year is new. I do think we got a great momentum as a program coming off some solid things last year. This coaching staff and roster, I think, is primed for another good year, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. I know there's excitement around the program. Spring ball starting, but the way, this stadium continues to go, just actually got off a quick tour. Everything's running on plan there of finishing in Research Stadium. Anxious for the fall to do that. I mean, momentum and ticket sales is as high as it's been in a long, long time. And so we're excited about that part of things too. And I guess I'd like to end before we get some questions, congratulating Chris Pendleton and our wrestling team winning the Pac-12 last night. Big time stuff for them. Fired up for that to take place. With that, questions.
Yeah, Coach, I think the biggest splash that everybody is really curious about since the end of the season is DJ. I think everybody's interested in your thoughts on how he's been on campus so far, and maybe you could just speak to DJ, the way he's accepted the program and your thoughts of him so far.
Yep. Got here early January. Came in with a approach of wanting to fit in and go to work with like the rest of the team. Obviously, he does. He garners a lot of attention, which is well earned. I mean, he's a good player. Had played in a lot of big games, won a lot of games doing it. But his approach since he's been here is kind of fitting in, going to work, and I think the guys have appreciated that. We're definitely excited starting tomorrow to be able to work with him on the field and see him operate the offense. And he's taken every opportunity these first couple of months to learn, getting with our coaches and learning the installs and the offense. Terminology is different, and so he's primed and ready to do that starting tomorrow. I do think he's had some benefit of the other quarterbacks in the room. Aiden Childs in the same boat, got here in January. And, Ben and Travis, I think, been very accepting and diving in and meeting and throwing and getting those guys up to speed as much as possible. So definitely looking forward, DJ, but really that quarterback room in general, all those guys to take a step in their game. First experience for Aiden and DJ, but even Ben to build off of what he did last year. And obviously Travis has been around here now almost a year and has some comfort with the offense, getting an opportunity to show it.
Jonathan, we know that Julian, McCartan, Frankie, Velling are out for the spring. Josh Green is limited. Anyone else this spring out or limited?
There'll be, as spring goes on, we'll be smart with some of these guys that have been around the block. I mean, Anthony Gould early on will probably be limited. I did not come with a list of the medical report, but the names you mentioned for certain out of all spring is accurate. I don't see Josh Green doing a ton, but with all those guys you mentioned too, totally anticipate them being healthy well before August camp.
The spring game, is that going to look any different this year, or do you think you'll run it pretty much the same way you've done in the past?
We're going to look at it. A lot of factors determine that as we get there. A little bit of health and what we've gotten accomplished so far. I do think trying a couple of different things is not out of the question, but I'm not certain on exactly April 22nd what we'll do there.
Coach, the way you ended your season, the win over Oregon, the dominance in the Pac-12 or in the Las Vegas Bowl, the talk at the end of the season is that it carries momentum through into spring ball and kind of gives you a little bit of a boost going into the season. Now that you're removed a couple months from that, does it still feel that way, that the end of that season is starting to impact how you guys are doing now?
I think in ways, yeah, it impacts just a little bit of confidence, understanding that we can accomplish some things. I think on the flip side of it, though, and this team knows it, I mean, each year is new. This roster is new. There's new players here, and what took place last year, yeah, we want to learn from, gain confidence from, but we know it doesn't help us at all starting with our first home game or first game in September. So a lot of guys returning on this roster know what it looks like to be able to compete at a really high level. And what it looks like is putting some real work in. And the stage we're at right now is spring ball. It started with the weight room January and February. Now the stage we're in spring ball, we got to take another step, and going back to the main goal of spring is everyone improving. We did that last year in spring ball. Got to do it again.
You touched on this a little bit. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, Jonathan, you added Avery Roberts to the staff. How did that come together?
It's been awesome around here the last few years. Our graduate assistants have gotten full-time jobs. And so the same thing took place on the defensive side. Both those guys landed at places. And so Avery, conversations, was thinking about continuing to play, thinking about wanting to get into coaching. I think the timing worked out for him of wanting to start his coaching career. I think he brings some value to us, that he's not too far from removed from playing, really smart. And so when we had a spot available and reached out, and we're definitely excited to have him.
So, Coach, you had a couple that we know of position moves, with Micaiah Tongue moving to linebacker,
Yep.
Riley Sharp moving over to tight end. Any others?
Not currently. Those are the two that going into spring, we're going to have those guys play those positions and see how it plays out. I will say on that, I think it's open conversation with those guys. We're going to see what the spring looks like. And both Micaiah, Riley have multiple reps at the previous position. So after spring, we'll evaluate and make sure it's the right fit for all involved.
Jonathan, you touched on this a little bit, but with DJ, I mean, what specifically stood out to you from watching his film or even having conversations with him during the recruitment that made you want to add him to this roster?
Well, on the film, he's competitive. You can see that. He's definitely skilled as a passer, runner, hangs in the pocket, goes through a progression. All of that showed up on tape. Learning about him during the recruiting process is just how great a person the guy is, how good a teammate he is. Talked to so many people over at Clemson, even going all the way back to his high school career. It was a reoccurring theme. We're talking about the type of player he is, teammate he is, work ethic he has, and he's been that here for the last 2 months.
Jonathan, talk a little bit about the transition you guys had at the running back coach position, moving on from AJ to Keith. How were you able to identify Keith, and what do you think he's been able to bring to that spot? And do you guys kind of expect about the same production that we've seen, just with another great hire?
Yeah, really excited about Keith. Julia's wife joining us. I've known Keith for a long time, worked with him for 6 years at Boise and at Washington. And so when Coach Stewart, and again, Coach Stewart did a great job here too, really happy for him to be able to get closer to some family, for his wife, going to a good program. But thankful for what he did for our place for a couple of years. I think Keith brings some added dimension on the special team side, leadership wise. He's going to be an assistant head coach around here because, again, I got a background with him that I know what he's all about when it comes to culture, development, coaching, and developing players. So feel really good about him. Recruiting ties he has, he's fitting great already, and I think he's walking into a position room. Then let's face it, I think we got some talent in that room with everything coming back, and we needed to match that with the type of coach, and I think we've done that with Keith.
Jonathan, I wonder if you could address cornerback and inside linebacker. Those seem to be two positions where there's a lot of movement from last year.
Yeah, we definitely had two good corners that started for us majority of the year that we're rooting for come this NFL draft with Alex and Ray. And so I think in college football each year, you got to be ready to replace some good players. I think the way Jaden Robinson played toward the end of the year, he ended up starting in the bowl game, playing a lot. The last few games played well. We're counting on him in a big way. Again, take a step in his game, but to be able to solidify one side of that. And then we got some other options, some players that have been in the program, Noble Thomas, Joe Swin, been here a year, gotten a lot of reps. And so this spring is huge for those guys that, to be an answer and try to lock down one of the other positions. We got, or did I say other position, the other corner position. Ryan Cooper has the capability of doing it. And he did play corner for us last year in different packages, injury wise, it needed to bump him out there some. We'd love to be able to keep Coop at nickel, but he's going to get some reps at corner and see what best 11 we put out there. Inside backer, Easton, counting on him in a big way, take a step, played a lot of football. I think he's a really good player. He's got to get a chance to solidify himself. And that's why, again, you got some options here. Mason transferring over and getting an opportunity there. Micaiah Tongue comes over. John Earhart has gotten some reps. John Miller been in the program as well. And so we want to be a place that guys do develop over time. And some of these guys have been in the program, and then now it's going to be their turn to grab hold of a starting spot or be in the rotation.
Jonathan, you've lost a lot of leaders off last year's team, obviously, most of the captains and then probably a few others. What are you looking for this spring in terms of replacing that leadership?
Well, it begins, and some of these guys that we were going to have to replace, there's no question. We had great leadership last year. Can't list them all, but I think about like Kipper and Jaden Grant and those two corners we mentioned already, Simon Sandberg, and yeah, we had a lot. And so each year, you got to continue to develop that. I do think we've got some returning leadership that's still here with Levin Good and Joshua Gray. Katan Oladapo, some of these guys have played and been around what success looks like and knows the culture and work ethic around here. So, each year you plug away and guys rise to the occasion. And I'm very confident we're going to have plenty of leadership on this team.
Coach,
Jonathan,
in December, you talked about some of the new receivers that were going to be here for spring ball. Have you seen, Taz or, gosh, I think you have Zach Card,
Yep.
Montrell.
Montreal.
Got a handful of guys there. Anybody standing out early flashes?
Well, athletically, so Zach Card, he had a great offseason, ran well. Anxious to see him kind of move around starting tomorrow.
You've got outside of DJ, you've got several other transfers from other FBS programs. What have been some of your impressions of those guys that you've going into spring?
Yep. Really like Nico and Olu, what they've added to, I think, a room that we can affect the passer with. Both those guys been in off-season training, first time around the program. I had lunch with actually both of them today. They're both anxious about getting started tomorrow. I think Grant Stark's going to help us O-line wise, the way he's moving around, the experience he's had. So I'm anxious to see him out there with that offensive line. Those three in particular kind of stand out to me. But with Jermaine at tight end, he's going to get a lot of reps, got good experience, added a really good player to a tight end position that we're counting on this season. So like those guys.
You touched on a couple of the freshman receivers. How much opportunity do you see the freshmen getting, the 7 that are here this spring? Is it more about learning, or do you see them actually, getting into some roles early on?
Well, early on, you're finding out, it's about learning, seeing what they can do, giving them opportunity to show what they can do. And that's really for every position. But in spring, that's their beauty. That's why everybody's getting reps. We're going 1s, 2s, 3s. They're going to have opportunities in those particular individual groups to make plays. Aiden Childs, the same way as a freshman coming in here. Even, from the defensive line, linebacker position, secondary, every spot, you're going to get team reps to be able to show where you're at. And obviously it's our job to keep them getting better and put them in the right spots.
With Josh Green out pretty much limited this spring, do you have who else do you have that would be in the mix to punt?
Right. And me and Coach Cook's talking about that. We do a lot of fundamentals during special teams in the spring. We'll implement some scheme for sure, but we're not overly panicked with Josh in regards to he's gotten a bunch of reps, got in the game a little bit. We felt really good about him actually getting into the game this last fall, but Luke was playing so well. So we'll have different guys out there and work on punts. Same thing we'll do on the kickoff thing and give those guys each opportunities during on the PAT and kick it off.